All right, so we're going to talk about just some fundraising ideas, but also kind of the process that might be helpful to take while planning fundraisers and actually doing the fundraisers. So obviously right now with virtual events, fundraising has been a little bit difficult, but you can kind of still take into consideration how you would do an in-person fundraiser and just apply it to virtual. So first of all, we're going to talk about the 5 keys to successful fundraising. So actually, first we have questions. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. So for those of you who have done some fundraising with your org, maybe since we've been virtual, what types of fundraiser has your student organization done in the last few months? Or what ideas do you have for student organization fundraisers in the future? So if you either have some that you think have been successful or you have some ideas for some in the future, if you'd like to share those ideas.
Yes, I like to share. We did a fundraiser. So of course we can't all meet up and collect stuff like that. So I got in connection with Nothing Bundt Cakes, and we had it pretty much. We're all gonna go eat. So we had it to where just let them know that you're with our organization. They put your receipt in a little box, and we get a certain percentage of that. And so we made a little bit of a profit off of that. We did it for about a week, and we had a pretty nice turnout with that. So I highly recommend just setting up fundraisers like that, places that are very school friendly or organization friendly, that accept, people that'll put money to the side, for your org.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, that's really cool. I didn't know you could do it for a whole week. What we did was a profit share at Chipotle, and that was only for like an evening. So it's good to hear that you can do it for a whole week. I'll probably take that up.
I know the same thing as Maritza. We did that for my fraternity. It was only for an evening. I think that's the only thing we did because it was very limited. So it it kind of was good, but kind of didn't work out. But it's like, well, I mean, it is what it is.
All right, well, we will talk more about some ideas, and I do definitely think that the profit share one is a great idea just because we are all in a college town. And so a lot of restaurants or businesses are very willing to work with student organizations because they know, being in a college town, the university is very important to their business. So they're definitely willing to work with you. All right, so now we're going to talk about the 5 keys to successful fundraising. So we have answer the why, choose the right fundraiser, effective organization, teamwork is essential, and action and follow through. So we're going to kind of go more in depth about each of these. So first we have key number 1 and number 2. So answer the why and choose the right fundraiser. So for answer the why, you want to ask questions like, what is the mission of your organization? So kind of just in a general purpose, what is your org's purpose for? Are you reaching out to a certain group of people, or do you have a certain service project that you're passionate about? Kind of what is that thing that brings all of you together, and how do you want that to relate to your fundraisers? For motivation and purpose, it's kind of similar. Why is your org doing the fundraiser? Obviously, are you fundraising just for your org, or are you fundraising for your philanthropy, whatever it might be? You want to make sure you know what that motivation is and what the purpose of the fundraiser will be. And that's kind of going to be your foundation for what fundraiser you're going to do. And then you have to choose internal versus external fundraiser. So an internal one would be selling merch to fundraise, because you're probably only going to sell org merch to other org members. But external would be like a profit share, or ones that people from outside of your org can participate in and help out in. For who's assisting, this, of course, your org, every member should have some part in the organization, whether it's, or in the fundraiser, excuse me, whether it's just going to the fundraiser or participating in the fundraiser. or if it's actually partaking in the planning of it. But also, are you willing to work with other orgs? We do have a lot of orgs that have similar missions. And so, maybe a fundraiser might be more successful if you partner with another org and you kind of join forces to be able to put on a fundraiser. So that's something to think about as well. How much time is being dedicated? So this kind of goes along the lines of balancing your student and officer life. You want to make sure to set a time and like prioritize how much you want to put into this fundraiser so that you give yourself ample amount of time to finish it and to be successful. Because remember, we are students. And so obviously your schoolwork is going to be the top priority before your org, but you do want to make sure you're doing good, successful work for your org. So you want to make sure you give yourself enough time. So say you want to put on a big fundraiser and you want it to be next Friday. Maybe not the best idea if you started planning today. So you just want to make sure you give yourself the right amount of time. And then connected to events, I know some of you and your orgs have annual events that kind of is your staple and people know you for having that event. And you can maybe think of how you can attach a fundraiser to that event if there isn't one already. Of course, moving events virtual, maybe adding a fundraiser to it might give it something more, since a lot is taken away sometimes, depending on the event when it goes virtual. So things to think about. All right, so the next key that we're going to talk about, key 3, is organization of the fundraiser. So this is going to be the really main planning time that you're going to put into the fundraiser. So first you want to create a fundraising goal. And remember, when you are choosing a fundraising goal, be reasonable and be practical. So a profit share is not going to make you $10,000, so yes, it's great to shoot for the stars, but you do want to be practical. Most of these fundraisers are asking college students for money, and most college students don't have a lot of extra money to give. So you just want to be aware of that, it's great to have large goals and to shoot really high, but make sure it's reasonable so that it's actually an obtainable goal. And second, establish a proper cost to profit ratio. So you want to make sure that you're not spending more than you are getting. So, whatever fundraiser idea that you decide to do, if it's going to cost your org a lot of money to put on that fundraiser and you don't believe it's going to have a super large turnout, you might want to find other ways to do that might be a little less expensive, which that is helpful in the virtual realm because a lot of times events are less costly since you aren't, feeding people or, having to reserve space, things like that. So that is helpful when it comes to virtual events. For number 3, set a budget. This will also help you not to spend more than you receive. And you want to be very strict on that budget so you don't go over, especially with fundraising. If you're going over your budget, then you're cutting into the money that's being fundraised. So set that right away. And so you can stick to it throughout the whole planning process. Number 4, donations and corporate sponsors. So like I mentioned, a lot of businesses around Denton are more than willing to work with student orgs. So, if you have any sort of connections with different businesses or organizations, or maybe there is an org or an organization outside of UNT you think your org could really help out or relate to, or maybe has a similar mission to what your org is or is in the same field, they might be interested in partnering with you, which is always helpful if you have donors, or maybe those businesses give you free things to give out and things like that. So just things to think about when you're thinking about whether or not to have sponsors or donors from the community outside of UNT. And then timelines and organization. Of course, you always want to be organized, have a plan. So it's important to set a timeline. So have small goals that you can reach. So maybe week 1, I want to have this figured out. Week 2, I want to contact these people. Week 3, I want to have a set plan, or whatever works for you. You just want to make sure you have a timeline that you are slowly finishing and getting to the next point, so that by the time your fundraiser comes around, you're like, oh, everything's done, I'm good to go. We're ready to do this. All right, so key number 4 and 5 will be teamwork is essential, and then action and follow through. So for teamwork is essential, as some of y'all have already stated, it's a lot to be an officer, and you do need your other officers to help you out. And sometimes even just your members. Remember that members did commit to being in your org, so they are probably, hopefully, willing to help you out with things org related. So don't be afraid to ask for help. You are not expected to do every little thing by yourself. It's okay to say, hey, this is a little too much for me. You know, president or secretary, could you help me out today? Whatever it may be. So work together for a common goal. Again, you all have the same purpose of being in this org, so you want to work together. And then make sure everyone is on the same page, especially within your officer board. You want to make sure everyone knows what's going on with the fundraiser, even if their position might not necessarily be in charge of the fundraiser. You still want them to be aware of it, just in case they need to come in and help at any time. Listen to everyone's ideas and thoughts before making decisions. So sometimes somebody, maybe, let's say your secretary who doesn't really do anything with the fundraisers, might have this great idea for you. You know, listen to those, and that's okay. If that's not in their realm of responsibilities, they're still able to help. So definitely, especially within your exec board, be having conversations about the fundraiser and just making sure that you are all on the same page about that. Spread out tasks so no one is doing an overwhelming amount. Again, it's okay to ask for help. And I know some of you said you're running an org with just 2 people. That's a lot. So maybe ask some of your org members to, hey, I know you're not an officer, but would you like a little extra responsibility just for this one event? And they might be more than willing to do that. Have org members volunteer to help during the actual fundraiser. So it is always helpful to have your members who aren't officers help out. And like Asia put in, the chat, committees are also a great way to kind of have some extra help. So maybe you could have a planning committee and then like a day of the fundraiser committee, or however you want to break it up, or like a donor committee where they just reach out to donors, things like that. So that's definitely very helpful. All right, so number 2, defined responsibilities and clear expectations. So everyone has a role. Make sure they know what it is and what they should be doing. So again, you want to make sure to delegate tasks to everyone so that they are clear on what to do and they aren't lost going, okay, what is my responsibility here? What am I supposed to do? And they'll make sure that everything gets done promptly and properly. And then communicate your expectations before the fundraiser begins so that everyone is aware of what they're expected to do. So you as treasurer, if you're the designated planner and person in charge of a fundraiser, you want to make sure that the expectations you have for everyone during the planning and the fundraiser is clear so that they know what expectations they are trying to meet. That's a very important part of event planning. And then communication for number 3. So once you have your plan and you're ready to tell everyone about your fundraiser and start getting participation, there's lots of different ways of doing this. Advertising is a big thing. You can advertise as a registered student org. You can advertise through the union TVs, through OrgSync. We don't have tabling right now just because we don't have in-person activities, but when we do have in-person activities, that is also an option, hopefully eventually, but obviously not right now. But yeah, just getting the word out about your fundraiser, advertising it, also sending it in group me's. If you have group me's that might not be of your org, but of like a class or something, or telling your classmates about it. Of course, if you do advertise something in a class, make sure to get professor permission before doing that, since it is their class, not yours. But yes, just communicate it with everyone you know, pretty much. Even if you don't think they'll be interested, they might. So just tell them about it, advertise. And you can even have a committee for just advertising and finding new ways to get the word out about your fundraiser. And then outreach, again, reaching out to donors. Maybe a business would be willing to put up a flyer about your fundraiser, or, the profit share idea. I have had a lot of experience with doing profit shares with my orgs in undergrad. And so, working with those businesses or other donors who might be donating to your org, or helping out with the fundraiser, things like that. So having an outreach committee is also helpful. And also it's helpful for after the fundraiser, if you do have donors, that outreach committee can write thank you notes to your donors, because you want to make sure that if people are partnering with you for a fundraiser, to thank them after the fact, so that they will want to continue to work with you in the future. So that's also a very important aspect of it. And then number 4, don't lose steam and celebrate. So towards the end of a project like this, it can kind of seem like, oh, why are we doing this? Like things are going wrong, or maybe you just, meet a bump that you just can't seem to get over. Don't lose steam, keep going. You will get through to the end. Your planning has not been for nothing. So make sure that you just keep pushing through and encouraging your org members to continue to be involved and helping out with everything. And again, if you do get to that point where you just need help, don't be afraid to ask for it. And then after your fundraiser, or while your fundraiser is going on, celebrate what you've done. You did well. Celebrate the little things. Even if you get one donor, and that's a big deal. Someone wants to partner with you and help you. So celebrate those things, and don't just push them off to the side as nothing. They are important, no matter how big or small. And then lastly, after your fundraiser, you want to have an evaluation of it. So either you can evaluate it yourself, or you can ask org members to, or maybe other officers, to give feedback about the fundraiser, and some ideas about maybe how to make it better, or what went well, and things like that. So you want to make sure that you're taking time to actually evaluate what happened and how the process was, so that you can either make it better or keep doing the things that worked really well. All right, so I know that was a lot, but hopefully that was some helpful information on planning. Now we're going to talk about some activities. These things on this slide, these 3 things we're going to talk about, are things we aren't allowed to do on campus. So just be aware of that. So these fundraisers are not allowed for student organizations, just for pretty much the safety of your org. So first off, we have raffles. So a raffle means the awarding of 1 or more prizes by chance at a single occasion among a single pool or group of people who have paid or promised a thing of value for a ticket that represents a chance to win a prize. So sometimes what we don't think is a raffle might actually constitute as a raffle. So just be mindful of that. Raffles are legal in the state of Texas. If you've been to org orientation, you've probably heard this, but that was news to me when I found out. So if you have some sort of activity that resembles a raffle, reach out to Student Activities before moving forward on that, just so that we can make sure that it doesn't break any laws or rules, and that your org will not get any trouble for doing that thing. So that's important to remember. And then bake sales. So because of food handling policy, we do ask that student orgs don't have bake sales of like homemade baked goods. We are sure and we know that some of you are great at baking and probably make the best brownies ever, but we just want to make sure that nobody gets sick and that your org is not held responsible for that. So especially right now with COVID, and we are just trying to stop the spread of any sort of germs. So we just want to say no to bake sales. So if that was something you were thinking about doing, maybe switch it to like having a Zoom party where you all bake in your own kitchens together. And you're using your own ingredients, or I don't know, you could spin it some way. And then selling food goes along with that as well. So you cannot sell any sort of food at the university. All right, so on our next slide, we'll talk about some fundraising ideas that are allowed and may be helpful for all of you. So takeout nights is what all of you already mentioned, and apparently you can either do it for a week, which is kind of cool. So this is just the profit share. Right now, we do want to encourage y'all to make sure that it is to-go orders. So I think Nothing Bundt Cakes is a great idea because you can't even sit inside of a Nothing Bundt Cakes if you wanted to. So that keeps that problem from happening, where it makes sure that people are just getting it to go and going home. But that's a great way to collect money. And also, you know, if you do it on maybe a Friday night, a lot of people go out to eat on a Friday night anyways because they don't want to cook. So that's always a great option. For virtual event or tournament or game nights, you can charge an entry fee to have people come participate. So if there's a certain game that your org just loves to play together, maybe open it up to the public and say, hey, if you pay $5, you can come play in a tournament with us. And that can kind of just be a fun fundraiser, and you get to know new people and maybe even have some new org members come from that. So that's always a great idea. For virtual fundraisers on social media, this is kind of something I've seen happen more in the last few months, but maybe having, I know a lot of you mentioned using Venmo. And so you could have, I don't know if y'all have seen this, but there's like bingo boards, excuse me, where there's different money amounts. So like $1, $2, $3, and org members will ask their followers to Venmo me a certain amount, so maybe $1, and I'll mark you off of my bingo card. And the goal is to have the org members are supposed to fill up the bingo card, if that makes sense. So that's kind of a fun way. And maybe you could say whichever org member fills their bingo card first gets some sort of prize or something like that. So that could be a fun way to do it. But on that, just make sure that you are tracking those Venmo requests closely so that no one is, you know, keeping it. And so that's definitely something you just have to watch out for when multiple org members are being Venmo'd, but that's definitely a fun way to kind of engage people outside of your org and maybe who are just, you know, scrolling through Instagram and going, oh, I can give $1 to this cause. That won't hurt me. So it might be a fun way to do it. Alumni, a lot of you might have some great alumni from your organizations who are willing to donate and give some money. So always reaching out to them. You can even have a committee who is just designated to writing alumni letters and sending them out maybe once a semester or once every 2 semesters. Alumni love to hear back from their alma maters. So that is always a great idea as well. All right, so quickly, I'm going to go through some opportunities through SGA and GSC funding. Some of you might already know about these things, but there have been some updates on a few of them. So SGA Eagles Nest, this is a fund that helps assist registered student orgs with on-campus event services or projects. An event application must be submitted in order to request funding. So if you need really in-depth information about this, I suggest emailing SGA about this just because they're able to give you all the details. But pretty much how it will work is you will submit an event application and then you'll attend an SGA resource meeting and you'll complete an Eagles Nest application after that. which is in OrgSync, and I don't think it's opened yet for the semester, but I think it's opening soon. And that will be at least 4 weeks before your planned date when you need to submit that application. So it's definitely one for bigger events that you have been planning for a long time. And then you'll present to the Eagles Nest committee and they'll decide whether or not to fund you. And you can find the guidelines on SGA's website. And again, if you are really interested in this, I highly encourage reaching out to SGA for more information about it. But if you have a large event in mind that your org wants to do, this is definitely an opportunity to help fund that. All right, and then RALP Travel Grant has actually just recently changed a bit to cater more to just virtual conferences, since travel is not going to be really an option at all for a while at least. I think they decided it was better to just make this an opportunity for students to go to virtual conferences. So traveling, again, is currently not permitted, but RALP has adjusted to fit the needs of students with virtual conferences. So a student can receive up to $750 per semester towards one conference. While there's no limit to the number of students attending the same conference, the fiscal limit for any one conference is $3,000. If multiple members of a registered student organization desire to attend the same conference, they may submit one application for all members. So student organizations can apply for up to $3,000, but any amount exceeding this limit will need to gain approval of the UNT SGA president. The RALP Travel Grant is offered on a first come, first served basis, and students are encouraged to apply early in the semester as soon as they are aware of upcoming conferences. So if there are conferences happening this semester, they are probably already planned and probably already out there on the internet. So if your org is interested in attending any of those, definitely, again, I don't think this application is open, but it will be soon. So be on the lookout for conferences that your org might want to partake in. And this is a reimbursement fund, so you would pay out of pocket and then be reimbursed for it. So you want to keep the receipts and things like that. So just something to remember. And then for GSC, so for graduate student travel or virtual conferences right now or events, you'll go through the GSC event and travel fund. And so you can contact them for more information about that. And they'll be able to better assist you on that if you are a graduate student organization.